Hi, I'm Mahi Mustafa, and you're watching The American Side. Today we're talking about Iran war's hidden costs. How is a conflict that's half a world away impacting and hitting American wallets? When Americans hear about the war in the Middle East, usually the focus is on military strategy, strikes, alliances, geopolitics. But there's another battlefield that people aren't really talking about or thinking about. It's the American economy. Because when the United States goes to war, Americans aren't just watching it on the news, they're paying for it. But for most Americans, the impact looks different: higher prices, higher borrowing costs, and a national debt that continues to grow. So today we're asking a simple question: what does this war actually cost Americans? So let's start with the number Washington is now acknowledging. The United States has already spent $12 billion on military operations against Iran since strikes began on February 28th. And that's just the opening phase. Military analysts estimate the early pace of operations has cost close to $900 million per day. To understand how quickly that adds up, consider the economics of modern warfare. A single Tomahawk cruise missile costs roughly $2 million. Advanced missile defense interceptors can cost between $4 million and $12 million each. And often, multiple interceptors are fired to stop a single incoming drone or missile. That creates a strange imbalance. An adversary may launch a drone costing tens of thousands of dollars, but stopping it can cost millions. Multiply that across hundreds of engagements, and the price climbs fast. Now add the cost of operating the military itself. Running a US aircraft carrier strike group can cost over $6 million per day. A single hour of flight time for an F-35 fighter jet costs around $36,000. And once weapons are used, they must be replaced, meaning that the Pentagon places new orders with defense contractors. That spending ripples through the federal budget almost immediately, but the economic effects don't stop at the Pentagon. The second impact hits the global markets. The Persian Gulf handles about one-fifth of the world's oil supply, much of it passing through the Strait of Hormuz. When conflict threatens that route, energy markets react instantly, like they did. Even a $10 increase in oil prices can cost the average American household about $450 per year through higher fuel, food, and transportation costs. Energy is the foundation of the economy. When it becomes expensive, everything else follows. Shipping costs rise, airfares rise, manufacturing costs rise, and eventually, those increases show up in everyday prices. Higher energy prices also complicate something policymakers have spent the past 2 years trying to control: inflation. If inflation rises again, the Federal Reserves may keep interest rates higher for longer. That affects mortgages, car loans, and small business investment. For many families, that can mean the difference between buying a home or waiting another year. Now zoom out even further. The United States already carries more than $34 trillion in national debt. Wars are rarely funded with immediate tax increases. Instead, they're usually financed through borrowing, which means the real cost doesn't disappear. It shifts into the future. In fact, did you know that the federal government is now paying more than $800 billion a year just in interest on the national debt, one of the fastest growing items in the federal budget? Every new conflict adds to that long-term burden. Now this is where the conversation sometimes turns inwards. Because every dollar spent on war is a dollar that cannot be spent somewhere else. Right now, the United States faces major domestic challenges, including housing affordability and homelessness. More than 650,000 Americans are estimated to be experiencing homelessness on a given night, the highest number recorded in modern data. Solving that crisis requires housing, services, and long-term investment, but federal budgets always involve trade-offs. And wartime spending inevitably competes with other priorities. So what does this Iran conflict mean from the American side?
This is a war of choice. And if you just go through quickly, the president said there were going to be 4 goals. Regime change, we've actually got a worse supreme leader than the previous one. And you heard the foreign minister, it doesn't sound like they're ready to move out.
In the end, every war raises the same question. Not just whether if it was strategically necessary, but what it ultimately cost the people paying the bill. There's so much more to this war than meets the eye. I'm Mahin Mustafa and you're watching The American Side. Do like and subscribe and share your comments. Until next time.